Everyone is talking about the current craze that is rocking the hip-hop and love industries. And the cameras didn't miss a second of it. Fans can't stop rewatching the new episode because of the dramatic argument that broke out between Rasheeda Frost and Sierra. The entire ensemble was surprised by the confrontation that resulted from the tension that had been building for weeks. What could have been a magnificent night descended into complete turmoil due to gossip, accusations, and heightened emotions. What actually caused this furious argument? Was it a miscommunication, exaggerated to the extreme, envy, or a covert betrayal? Insiders indicate that the conflict may have deep roots connected to previous secrets and grudges. And the video that is making the rounds on social media implies that there is more to this battle than meets the eye. Viewers are describing it as one of the season's most memorable moments, with friends rushing to step in, drinks flying, and voices raised. Fans are left wondering as the dust settles whether Rasheeda and Sierra will ever move past this dramatic altercation, or if the program has just witnessed the beginning of its most heated rivalry to date. The new episode began with what appeared to be a typical evening of glitz, music, and excitement. But underlying the laughing and smiles lurked a storm that nobody had anticipated. Sierra attempted to maintain her composure, but it was clear from her body language that something was wrong as Rasheeda Frost entered the room, her confidence like armor. Although the two had previously experienced tension together, this time it felt heavier and different, as though an unseen line had already been crossed. Little comments started to disturb the atmosphere as the night went on. After a remark here and a sidelong glance there, rumors of impending strife quickly spread. Fans who watched afterward could sense it on the screen. The suspenseful tension was indisputable. "I don't like where this is heading. This is about to blow up," Bambi murmured softly as she leaned over to one of the females at the table. The cameras captured the entire incident, and her prediction was spot on. In an attempt to keep her cool, Sierra finally spoke up. She said, "I don't know why you always feel the need to put me down. It's like you can't stand to see me shine," with a steady voice and fiery eyes as she gazed directly at Rasheeda. Glasses stopped halfway to the lips. The room instantly fell silent, and everyone's focus was drawn to Rasheeda. Rasheeda leaned closer, her smirk barely masking her annoyance. "Glow, I was in this game long before you even considered entering it. Girl." Her remarks were scathing, and the way she accentuated them chilled the air. Don't confuse constructive criticism with shade. As more people started to respond, the tension only increased. With her trademark laugh, Carly Red, who never stays quiet when drama is present, said, "Oh Lord, here we go again." Her half-joking remark only intensified the mood, and admirers later expressed their amazement at how rapidly things went south. "Someone better hold my drink because this is about to turn into a headline." Sierra rose up and shoved her chair back, raising her voice. Everyone in the room was stunned when she said, "You're not going to sit here and act like you're better than me? You might think you've got the crown, but that doesn't give you the right to treat me like I'm beneath you." Knowing that a moment like this could not be missed, people started taking out their phones. Although there had been rumors of Rasheeda and Sierra fighting in such a public setting, nobody believed it would really come to pass. But here it was, playing out in front of them, and the cameras made sure that every moment was recorded. Never one to back down. Rasheeda also got to her feet and confronted Sierra. "Below me, avoid flattering yourself. I don't think you're beneath me, but I also don't think you're on my level. You act as though you've created something, but without the path I paved. What you have wouldn't even exist." Bambi attempted to intervene as the room erupted in gasps, lifting her hands as though to quell the commotion. "This isn't the time or place, so you guys should relax." But the two women were too deranged to listen. The heated back-and-forth discussion descended into a raging argument of loyalty, respect, and treachery. In response, Sierra retorted that Rasheeda was envious and couldn't stand anyone else taking center stage, accusing her of being ungrateful and riding the coattails of those who came before her. "Are you jealous?" Rasheeda reiterated, her voice brimming with incredulity. Me? I don't have to be envious of you or anybody. I started from scratch when it came to my family, my brand, and my name. Do you have any idea what I would be envious of? Sierra didn't hold back, her voice quivering with anger rather than fear. Yes, you established your brand, but you also erected barriers. Walls you conceal to keep the fractures hidden, and you destroy everyone who attempts to take the lead. Because you can't bear the idea of being replaced. The room briefly froze as the words struck like a grenade. Eyes went from one woman to the next. Jaws fell. And even the cameras appeared to pause, as though they were taken aback by what had just been uttered. Rasheeda's eyes narrowed and her features tightened, as if each word had a sharp edge. Online comments from viewers afterwards stated that they had never seen Rasheeda appear so close to losing her temper. One fan wrote on Twitter, "This was the breaking point." You could literally see the shift in her face when Sierra said that. However, Bambi, who had been loitering close by, chose to make a more direct intervention just when it seems that the quarrel could not get any worse. "Sierra, you must quit constantly playing the victim. It's growing stale. Perhaps you are the issue, not Rasheeda." The audience responded immediately, with some applauding and others shaking their heads in recognition that Bambi's remark had just fueled an already blazing fire. Sierra gave her a betrayed expression as she turned to face her, her voice breaking under the intensity of her feelings. "You too. I mistakenly believed you to be my friend, Bambi. However, I can understand where your true devotion rests." Her remarks caused the crowd to tremble, and the betrayal hurt. Fans were riveted to their screens by the notion that friendships could end so abruptly in front of the cameras. People were arguing over who was right, who was wrong, and who was just stirring things up for publicity. As comments on social media surged, as the voices grew louder and security approached, beverages poured, but nobody dared to intervene completely because this was more than a simple argument. After years of conflict, covert rivalries, and unsaid realities, they were ultimately revealed. Fans got precisely what they wanted in this episode: unadulterated drama that seemed to transcend the show. Rasheeda and Sierra were just inches apart in the midst of all that pandemonium, each challenging the other to step over the boundary. The evening that began with glitz and glamour had devolved into a memorable confrontation that would occupy fans' thoughts for weeks. Security was hovering around, but they were hesitant to intervene because the cameras were filming and every second promised explosive television as the shouting war between Rasheeda and Sierra only became louder. Later, viewers remarked that it seemed like the kind of drama that might characterize a whole season, a turning point where reputations were broken and alliances were altered. "You think you can dismiss me like I'm just some background act? But people are watching me now. They respect what I bring to the table," Sierra said, leaning forward once again and her voice trembling with rage. "Perhaps that's what frightens you the most." Rasheeda chuckled bitterly and shook her head slowly, though she was having trouble believing what she was hearing. "Are you afraid? Girl, you're not even on my mind. It is you who is turning this into a contest. I was taking care of myself. But it's obvious that you feel threatened enough to come get me tonight." Even casual viewers shifted uneasily and whispered among themselves because of the intense tension between them. "This is going to get ugly," someone in the back yelled, and they weren't mistaken. Carly Red was unable to contain her remark as she sipped her drink with wide eyes. "Lord, I've witnessed a few fights in my time, but this one is going to be remembered forever." As if the situation wasn't dramatic enough, Yandi entered the discussion, her tone intended to quell the fervor, but instead intensifying it. "Listen, I understand how pride can muddy things since I've been in your shoes. But perhaps we shouldn't bring each other down here. Keep in mind that others are observing. And this is more than just the two of you." However, rather than diffusing the situation, Yandi's remarks seemed to remind everyone that the cameras were actually there, which encouraged both women to make their point even more. Sierra turned abruptly and pointed to Yandi, saying, "Don't pretend you're unaware of her abilities. Rasheeda constantly attempts to seem like the queen bee, treating everyone else as like she is untouchable. Yandi appeared divided between maintaining order and protecting Rasheeda. Rasheeda's harsh, demanding voice broke through the commotion before she could reply. "What you will not do is ruin my reputation in front of everyone. I've put in too much effort for that. You don't have the right to stand here and change history because you're feeling sentimental. History because you're feeling sentimental." Phones slanted higher, recording every second of this verbal battle as the crowd gasped once again. Later, viewers watched the video again, frame by frame, dissecting each facial expression, hand gesture, and emotional lapse. It was more than simply a fight. It was pure entertainment. Bambi took a step forward, her expression full of frustration. "You guys don't understand. This is about respect that has been lacking for a long time, not just about one night. Sierra, you act as though everyone owes you something. But Rasheeda has always given credit where credit is due." The rift was merely widened by their remarks. Sierra's eyes began to well up with tears, but she resisted letting them fall. "Respect. I've stood by pals that turn around and stab me in the back, so don't talk to me about respect. Don't stand there and call me unappreciative when I've had to struggle to earn what little recognition I do have." Those who previously believed she was just exaggerating felt their hearts tugged by her emotional outburst, which shook the room. Even the supporters later acknowledged that they were conflicted, unable to decide whether to sympathize with her suffering or doubt her intentions. But Rasheeda remained unmoved. "Perhaps you're not providing enough to be recognized if you had to battle so hard for it. Don't hold me responsible for your difficulties. No one gave me anything. I had to build my brand from the ground up. Thus, don't come for me merely because you feel unappreciated," as each side leveled charges that alluded to years of animosity. The altercation devolved into a war of old wounds. Online users conjectured that there had been private backstage disputes long before this evening, disputes that the cameras had never recorded until now. Kirk Frost moved up with a firm but hesitant voice just when it appeared that the verbal altercation might turn violent. "That's sufficient. You guys need to quit making a fool of yourselves." His attempt at authority elicited varied reactions from the audience. Some nodded in agreement while others jeered, believing he was ending what was beginning to become the season's most significant event. Sierra yelled at him right away. "You would defend her, of course. You always do. However, Kirk, you are unaware of the full extent of it. The things she says behind closed doors are unknown to you." Rasheeda's face flushed with rage as her eyes grew wide. "You have no right to bring up my marriage in this. This is between you and me, so keep Kirk out of your mess." However, the harm had already been done. The conflict took on a completely new dimension when Kirk's name was brought up, entangling family relations in a rivalry that had already gotten out of hand. The debate turned from petty to personal at this point, altering the entire tone of the altercation, according to comments made by supporters online, still attempting to defuse the situation. Yandi spoke louder over the commotion. "This is not going to get better. This cut becomes deeper the more you guys talk. Consider tomorrow and how this will appear to the world when captured on camera." However, nobody was considering tomorrow. Proving who was correct, who had the authority, and who would leave unscathed was all that mattered at that very time. Sierra wiped her eyes and cried, "You no longer have control over me," her voice breaking. "I've got enough of being under your shadow." Rasheeda moved closer till security eventually moved into place, prepared to intervene if hands were thrown. "Shadow, I led the way, which is the only reason you even have a light. Remember that always?" Before a flurry of gasps, yells, and startled laughter erupted. The line struck like a thunderclap, briefly quieting the audience. Later, supporters would refer to it as the sentence that escalated a disagreement into a full-fledged conflict, and the blade that pierced the deepest. Emotions were so high at that moment that nobody could bring them down. Sierra's breathing was labored, as though she was struggling to keep herself together, and her hands were shaking at her sides. The cast members in the vicinity appeared conflicted. Some approached to step in and help, while others remained behind. obviously not wanting to be caught in the crossfire. Even still, the cameras continued to roll, catching every moment of anger, betrayal, and agonizing reality that had hitherto been concealed. Even though there were already a lot of voices in the room, what followed took things to a new level that nobody had anticipated. Breathing heavily, Sierra finally released the feelings she had been suppressing for too long. "I've been patient and quiet, but not anymore. You pretend that everyone should bow down while you sit on your throne, but in reality, you've been afraid of me from the start?" Rasheeda's face hardened as she froze for a moment while the crowd gasped. She instantly snapped back though, so her silence was short. "Are you afraid? Avoid flattering yourself. I don't miss any sleep because of you, while you've been too preoccupied with offering justifications for your shortcomings. I've been keeping this circle together." Sierra's hands smashed down on the table after the accusations struck her hard, shattering glasses and sending shockwaves through the gathering. "Failures. Your refusal to acknowledge your insecurities is the only thing that has gone wrong here. You're right there attempting to dull my light whenever I shine a little. You weaken rather than elevate." Friends and co-stars in the audience shuffled uneasily, unsure of which side to support. While some muttered their agreement with Rasheeda, others nodded in response to Sierra's remarks. However, there was no denying that this was more than a single night. Everyone was watching as years of unspoken animosity finally exploded. Bambi came forward once more, her voice more piercing. "Sierra, you keep blaming yourself for the drama, but perhaps you're the one who started it. Rasheeda has only shown loyalty, and all you do is find fault with her." Even though Sierra was trying to be tough, tears were suddenly streaming down her face as she wheeled toward Bambi. "Loyal? You believe it's loyalty, but I think it's control. Don't talk to me about loyalty when it means abandoning me. And you are so engrossed in her shadow that you fail to notice it." Bambi was clearly shaken by the sting of those words, but she remained rooted, her arms folded in defiance. Fans subsequently engaged in an unending online argument, with some arguing that Sierra was just lashing out because she felt cornered, while others claimed she finally revealed what others were too scared to say. Rasheeda, however, was unmoved by charges or sorrow. Her voice was quiet but nasty as she stepped closer. "Don't assume that my quiet indicates weakness. I've been lenient in the past, but you went too far tonight. Do you wish to portray me as the bad guy? Right. However, keep in mind that villains live on long after the victims do." Even the cameras seemed to linger on her face, catching the fire in her eyes, and the line was terrifying. Later, videos of that precise moment went viral on social media, with viewers referring to it as one of the show's most memorable statements ever. Ever the initiator. Carly Red gave a dramatic clap of her hands together. "This is legendary. My God." Her laughing erupted, adding to the turmoil. "I don't even know whose side to be on, but I do know the internet is about to break tonight," she said. Sierra's voice broke as she said, "You think this is about fame? But it's not," her chest heaving as she gasped for air. "I've had enough of you and your alleged loyalty gang treating me disrespectfully. It's all about respect." Someone in the crowd yelled that the video was already trending on the internet, as though the words themselves called forth even another twist, as everyone in the room took out their phones. The displays were illuminated with real-time posts and hashtags that were trending in real time. The battle had already left the room and was causing a stir outside, intensifying the intensity of every word and the shame. "This is out of control," Yandi said to herself as she placed her hands on her head. She attempted to intervene once more, saying, "They're not just fighting each other. They're tearing apart everything we've built together. Listen, you two have good feelings, but this is becoming something that neither of us can undo. Consider your reputations, your brands, and your families. Years of labor can be undone in a single angry night." Neither Sierra nor Rasheeda appeared to hear her cry, which lingered in the air. They were too far into their own conflict to turn back. Rasheeda lifted her chin, her voice now shaking from the pain and rage. "Families. Avoid involving family in this. I've given up everything for myself. You have no right to stand there and pretend that you have no idea what that means." Sierra retaliated right away, using her words as sharp blades. "Yes, you made sacrifices, but you also gave up friendships. Well, you gave up faith. And for what purpose? To hold yourself up on a pedestal that no one asked you to construct, like thunder." The words shattered the atmosphere, leaving a trail of silence. No one moved or talked for a moment, waiting to see who would break the stillness first. The entire cast was paralyzed, trapped between astonishment and excitement. Then, seemingly at the same moment, Kirk spoke up once more, his annoyance erupting. "This has advanced sufficiently. You people are unaware of the harm you are causing at this very moment. This is devastation, not strength. You are tearing each other apart in public, and once it is out there, it cannot be undone." However, Kirk's voice was insufficient to stop what had already been let loose. Sierra shook her head incredulously and turned away from him. "Kirk, you don't understand. You're not fighting this. This is about me at last advocating for myself. This is about me at last advocating for myself." Rasheeda rolled her eyes and gave a loud scoff. "Defending yourself? No. This has to do with your need for attention. You might have spoken to me privately, but instead you selected the loudest time, the largest audience, and the brightest lighting. That is desperation, not strength." Sierra's face contorted in anger as the charges hurt. "No, this is the only way you'd listen," she yelled, her voice breaking. "You dismissed me each time I tried to approach you. Well, with the entire world watching, you can't ignore me anymore." The audience exploded in yells and cheers, with some shaking their heads in shock and others applauding her audacity. They had never witnessed such a display. And the electric intensity was nearly intolerable. It became evident at that point that this was more than just a fight between two women. It was a war of pride, legacies, and years of concealed scars that were suddenly showing. Every insult, every glare, every tear was felt by home-based fans. And there was a lot of conjecture on the internet about how this might permanently alter the relationships. And the night wasn't over yet. With the room tense, drinks all over the floor, and shouts rising like a storm. Seemed like the fight had just started and there was no end in sight. Even security seemed stopped, not knowing whether to step in or let the cameras record what was rapidly becoming the most combustible moment of the season. As the electricity in the room had reached an irreversible point, every word that was exchanged between Rasheeda and Sierra was like fuel on an already blazing fire. And the air seemed thick and tense as she pointed at Rasheeda. Sierra's voice faltered yet remained strong. "You've been behaving like a queen for years, but a true queen doesn't crush her people. Instead, she elevates them. You believe that because of your past? Everyone should respect you, but respect is something that is earned, not something that is required." Rasheeda took a step closer, her tone icy and piercing as her gaze landed on Sierra. "Respect is something you have to earn, and I did it long before you understood what loyalty was. Don't try to change the rules by entering my personal space. If it weren't for me, you wouldn't even have a place at this table, which I created." When Rasheeda made her announcement, the crowd erupted in cheers and gasps. Even those who made an effort to maintain their objectivity were drawn into the intensity, their expressions contorted in disbelief at the depth of the wounds between these two ladies. Sierra's voice broke beneath the weight of betrayal, and her fingers trembled as she brushed tears from her face. An invitation to the table. "Rasheeda, I don't need your table. I no longer rely on you to validate me, so perhaps that's why you can't tolerate me now that I have my own." After those comments hit like a lightning bolt, there was a moment of stunned stillness in the room before rumors began to circulate. Fans subsequently claimed that line was the crux of the altercation, demonstrating that Sierra wasn't merely lashing out but rather claiming her freedom from the darkness she had felt imprisoned by for a long time. Bambi shook her head in shock and muttered, loud enough for the cameras to hear, "This is ridiculous. She's burning every bridge she has." Yet the stream was unabated despite her comments. Then a voice that nobody had anticipated. Hearing at that very time came from the corner. With typical dramatic flair, Carly Red held up her glass and yelled, "Two broken crowns and new queens." Her sarcasm sliced through the room like a dagger, causing some people to laugh and others to moan. But it also highlighted how divided the space had grown. Let's see who wears it better. Rasheeda's patience finally gave out. Her voice, loud and unflinching, rose above the throng. "You believe that letting go makes you strong? You become weak when you leave without showing respect. You can't play the hero after tearing me down. Not in front of my people, not here, not in front of my family." Shaking, Sierra refused to back down. "And you no longer have the authority to silence me. Rasheeda, this isn't just your world. It's about time someone informed you that this is also ours." Even Kirk, who was clearly under stress, came forward again because the altercation had become so intense. "Enough, you two. This has gotten out of hand. Take a glance around. This is a mess. You are destroying each other in front of the entire world. And the harm is irreparable." However, the commotion between the women overpowered Kirk's words. The cameras zoomed in to capture the unadulterated emotion in Rasheeda and Sierra's eyes as they leaned closer. Their faces inches apart. In a single explosive moment, pride, sadness, pain, and rage all collided. The harm was already done when the other actors tempted to shove seats back and push them apart in an attempt to create a wall between them. There had been allegations made that would reverberate long after the lights had gone out, and things spoken that could never be undone. Sierra's voice reverberated like a final blow as she yelled over the crowd, just as security was able to separate them. "This is only the start. You desired a brawl. You possess one. However, don't count on me to ever kneel down again." The announcement drove the crowd into a frenzy, with some shouting in shock and others clapping. Later, viewers at home reported that it felt more like the first shot of a war that will shape everything going forward than it did like a conclusion, with fire in her eyes. Rasheeda gazed across the room while being restrained. "You don't and never will frighten me." Her calm yet scathing words, "Remember that," came with the weight of assurance that this feud was far from ended. The night had become one of the most memorable episodes in the show's history as the cameras panned over the mayhem, which included cast members trapped between astonishment and tiredness, makeup smudged from tears, and spilled beverages on the floor. After this, nothing will ever be the same. The whispering persisted as the dust settled and people gradually took their seats once more. There were many unanswered concerns, like who would side, how the families would respond, and what would happen after the world saw this tape. Everyone was aware that the battle was far from over. It was merely taking on a new form that would permeate everyone's life and extend beyond the room. Social media was already on fire later that evening. Fans engaged in heated argument in the comments section. Hashtags swept across platforms and videos of the incident became viral right away. While some supported Sierra and hailed her as courageous for speaking up at last, others protected Rasheeda and praised her fortitude and legacy, similar to the anarchy that had just occurred in the episode. There was chaos on the internet. Insiders whispered that producers were ecstatic when the next day dawned, referring to it as the most talked about moment in years. However, for the women at the center of it all, this was more than just television. It was unresolved, raw, and personal. And even as fans rejoiced at the drama, the underlying question, what will happen next, remained more pressing than ever. Was this fight a permanent line in the sand? Or would Rasheeda and Sierra ever find common ground? The only thing that was definite was that their confrontation had left wounds that would take time to heal, and the reverberations of their exchanges would influence the plots, alliances, and rivalries for months to come. The world had seen the bonds crumble, the crown fall, and a feud that would never be forgotten begin. Everyone's thoughts were still filled with the echoes of that tumultuous night when the dust finally started to settle. Reputations had been severely damaged, friendships tried, and allegiances called into doubt. What began as a gorgeous evening devolved into an unpredicted battleground of accusations, words, and feelings. Fans were left in disbelief. Some supported Sierra for finally expressing her truth, while others sided with Rasheeda for keeping her ground. The division was evident, and the fallout from this conflict was expected to affect every aspect of their lives. Where do they go from here, however, is still the most important question. Has this argument caused a lasting rift in Rasheeda and Sierra's relationship, or will they ever be able to mend the harm? What new alliances will be forged in the wake of this instability? And how will the rest of the cast respond as the fallout spreads? The plot is far from over, even though the episode is over. The tension keeps rising, the drama is real, and the feelings are unfiltered. And it's your turn now. How do you feel about this unexpected confrontation? Was Sierra correct to stand up for herself at last, or was Rasheeda right to protect her legacy? We would love to hear your opinions, so please leave a comment below. If you were as surprised as the rest of us, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe so you don't miss any of the drama. If this episode taught us anything, it's that you never know when the next explosion will occur, so switch on your notifications. The stakes are stronger than ever, the cameras are rolling, and this story is just beginning.